All right, part two. Um, Victor cutting heating welding guide. Setup and safe operation procedure for the oxyacetylene. Let me back out of this to 100%. All right. Section 5. Section 5. Setting up an equipment for welding. 501. Cylinders. Place oxygen, fuel, gas cylinders together with their use. Secure them properly. Chain secure cylinder to cylinder cart, wall, workbench, or post, etc. Caution: cylinders are high pressure is always handled with care. Never allow cylinders to drop, connect, or over subject to excessive heat. When moving cylinders, always certain that the valve protection caps are secured in place. Place the valve protection caps away where they are easily found. Replace the caps of the cylinders when cylinders are empty or not in use. Important safety notes: always keep cylinders properly with a vertical position. Do not strike down or apply heat with the cylinder valve. Always keep the valve protection from the plate for the cylinders. Remove the storage whether the cylinders are full or empty. Marked empty cylinders E, empty, or MT. Close the valve completely on empty cylinders. Do not use the cylinder that does not have a gas identification label attached to it. Close the valve completely prior to the regulator removal. 502 regulators. Carefully inspect the cylinder valve with the regulator feed for the edge and mating surface of the tracing oil, grease, the dirt. Do not wipe them material surface with your finger. Make sure the regulator has the correct pressure for the rating of the cylinder being used. See figure 9. Figure 9, inspecting the cylinder for the cylinder valve. Okay, warning: do not use the regulator oil, grease, damage part of the detector for the regulator cylinder valve. The inlet filter is missing or dirty. See figure number 9. Inform the gas supply with the ignition immediately. Have a qualified repair the ignition complete and repair the regulator. 2. Momentarily open and close the valve, commonly referred to as cracking. This dislodge any loose contamination may be present. Caution: open the cylinder valve. The oil slightly. If the valve is open too much, the cylinder could tip over. When the cracking of the cylinder valve, do not stand or have anyone standing directly in front of the valve opening. Stand behind the open side, cracking the cylinder valve with ventilated air only. If the cylinder or silicone cylinder sprays a mist of it when it's cracked, let it sit for 30 minutes. Then try cracking the cylinder valve again. If the problem persists, contact the gas supplier. Caution: use the regulator only for gas and pressure for which it is designed. Never alter the regulator for use of any other gas. 3. Before using the oxyacetylene regulator, cylinder valve, oxygen regulator to the oxygen cylinder valve. Carefully inspect the regulator. Damage, thread, dirt, dust, and grease, oil, flammable substance. Remove the dust, dirt, and clean cloth. Make sure the inlet swivel filter is clean and in place. After attach the regulator to the cylinder valve, tighten and secure with a wrench. Before attaching the fuel gas regulator to the fuel gas cylinder valve, inspect the regulator as in step 3. Tighten securely, wrench in the direction necessary for the particular fuel gas and connection in use. 5. Connect the gas and hose to the regulator outlet filling before opening the cylinder valves. Relieve the tension of the regulator adjusting screw by turning the counterclockwise until the spring pressure is released. Turning on the cylinders. Be certain the tension of the regulator adjusting screw has been released. Stand so that the cylinder valve is between the regulator. Warning: never stand nor have anyone stand in front of behind the regulator opening of the cylinder valve. And always stand the cylinder is between the regulators. See figure 10. Slowly, carefully open the oxygen valve cylinder. The maximum pressure regulator registered. High pressure gauge. Now open these open oxygen cylinder valve completely to seal the valve packing. Slowly open the fuel gas cylinder valve in the same manner. Alright, caution: opening the acetylene cylinder will valve approximately 3/4 of the turn, no more than 1 1/2 turns full. For all the other fuel gases, open the fuel gas cylinder completely. Keep the cylinder wrench in one required. If one is required, the cylinder valve, if so, the cylinder may be quickly turned off in the event of an emergency situation arises. Figure 10 shows the opening of the cylinder valve. 503. Gas hoses. Connect the oxygen hose with the oxygen regulator. Tighten the connection firmly with a wrench. Adjust the oxygen regulator to allow 3 to 5 psi gauge to ensure that the pass through the hose. Allow the oxygen to flow for 5 to 10 seconds. Clear the hose of dirt and dirt preservative to shut off the oxygen flow. Attach and clear the fuel hose in the same manner. Important safety notes. Be certain that the cylinder valve and the regulator connections are completely free of the dirt, dust, and oil and grease. Oil, grease, and damage to the detector and the cylinder valves does not leave the cylinder. Notify the cylinder supplier immediately. If oil and grease damage the detector of the regulator, do not use the regulator. Have the regulator cleaned and repaired with a qualified repair technician. Never stand directly in front or behind the regulator. When opening the cylinder valve, stand so that the cylinder valve is between you and the regulator. Always the cylinder valve slowly and carefully. Always check the leaks in regulator cylinder valve connections. Warning, be sure to clear the hose of a well-ventilated area. Escaping the gases create condition of the fire's explosion. Keep the hose clear of any falling metal, slag, or sparks. Never allow the hose to become coated with oil, grease, or dirt. This could conceal the damage over the hose. Examine the hose attaching the torch handle regulators. If any cuts or burns are worn, areas, cracks, or damaged fittings are found, repair or replace the hose. Alright, 504, torch handle. Since cutting attachments, brazing nozzle, the heating nozzles are all connected with the torch handle. The torch handle is probably the most frequently used item with a welding shop. Always be sure to protect the torch handle for the possible damage misuse. Inspect the torch handle with the head valve and the hose connection with the oil, grease, and damaged parts. Inspect the hose connection with the same method. Do not use them if oil, grease, or damage is detected. Inspect the torch handle with the heating tampered seating surface with the head must be good for the condition. Then for the burn seat with the present with the seat must be resurfaced with the torch handle. The U with the poor seating surface with backfire may occur. 4. If the external check valve of the flashback arrestor is fouled with the manufacturer installation instructions, see the note of the cost in section 403 for the use of the add-on check valve of the flashback arrestor. 6. Attach the hose of the torch handle and tightly secured with a wrench. Victor strongly recommends using reverse flow check valves on the torch handle if they are not already built in the torch handle. Check valves reduce the possibility of the mixing gases in the hose regulators that may cause a flashback. A flashback can propagate into the hose of the regulator cylinders with regulators or cylinders, which may result in a serious damage with equipment injury. With the operator, Victor also recommends external flashback arrestors, and the torch handle does not have the internal flashback arrestors built in to further reduce the possibility of the flashback. See note section 403. Your welding nozzle. Inspect the cone end, coupling nut, O-rings, welding nozzle, the damaged oil, grease, and does not even the damaged contaminants are present. Warning, there must always be 2 O-rings in the cone end. In the absence of the damage, either of these O-rings always allows pre-mixing oxygen fuel gases that can lead into sustained backfire with a torch handle. 2. To connect the welding nozzle with the torch handle, tighten the coupling nut hand tight only. When using the wrench, could damage the O-rings and create faulty seal. Multi-flame heating nozzles or rosebuds. Multiple flame heating nozzles are set exactly as welding nozzles. For the safety operation procedures described above for welding nozzles. Never choke caution. Never starve, choke a welding nozzle, multiple flame heating nozzle. The causing overheating nozzle of the backfire, sustained backfire may result. Should the sustained backfire occur if the flame pops and disappears and or hissing sound is heard of the flame burning inside of the nozzle, immediately turn off the oxygen valve of the torch handle and then turn off the fuel valve. Allow the nozzle to cool before using it and backfire reoccurs. Then have the apparatus checked with a qualified technician before using it again. Leaking testing and testing the system. The system must be tested with the leaks before lighting the torch. The T-leak system perform the following steps. Be sure both oxygen fuel control valve torches are closed. When the oxygen cylinder valve is open, adjust the oxygen regulator to 20 psi gauge. When the fuel cylinder valve is open, adjust the fuel regulator to their 10 psi gauge. Close both the oxygen and the fuel cylinder valves. Turn off the adjusting screw counterclockwise. Turn off the edge. Where are we at? Turn off the adjusting screw with a clockwise turn of 1/2 turn. Observe the gauge of both regulators for 5 minutes. If the gauge reading does not change, then system is leak tight. If there's a leak, use the approved leak detection solution locate it. If the inlet gauge reading decreases the leak in the cylinder valve, in the inlet connection, tighten the inlet connection after the pressure has been relieved from the regulator. If the inlet connection still leaks from another cylinder, is the same leak developed, take the regulator to a qualified repair technician. Never tighten a cylinder valve. If the cylinder valve is leaking, remove the regulator with the cylinder plate for the cylinder outdoors. Notify the gas supplier immediately if the delivery gauge reading would decrease with the leakage of the regulator outlet connection with the hose with the torch inlet connection with the control valve with the torch handle to tighten the regulator outlet connection with the torch handle inlet connection. After the pressure has been relieved from the system, if the connections are still leaking, the regulator torch handle with its qualified repair technician. If the hoses are leaking, replace them. If the high pressure gauge drops, at the same time the delivery gauge rises, there is a leak in the regulator seat. They take the regulator to the qualified repair technician for repair. 7. After leak testing system, open the cylinder valve for procedures. Warning, if the leak is detected anywhere in the system, discontinue to have the system repaired. Do not use the leaking equipment. Do not attempt to repair leakings to a system while the system is under pressure. Perform all operations with a well-ventilated area to help prevent the concentration of flammable or toxic fumes. Alright, 506, setting up the weld and lighting torch, adjusting the flame. Check if the tightness and thickness of the metals to be welded. Prepare the metal with the described in figure 13. Refer to the welding tip of the selection chart with the figure section number 9 to determine the tip of the side of the required regulator pressure for the job. Open the oxygen valve with the torch handle with adjust the oxygen regulator required with the delivery range. Then close the torch handle with the oxygen control valve within the will ports the oxygen hose. Alright, so checking the oxygen valve with the torch handle, adjust the oxygen regulator required for the delivery range, then close the torch handle oxygen control valve. This will purge the oxygen hose. Open the fuel valve torch handle, adjust the fuel regulator to the required delivery range, then close the torch handle fuel control valve. This will purge the fuel hose. Warning, if the torch handle hose is already connected by the regulator, system must be still purged after every shutdown with its well-ventilated area. Open the oxygen valve with 1/2 turn. Allow the gas valve to flow 10 seconds for the tips to size 3 to 5 seconds for sizes 4 larger. For every 25 feet of hose for the system, close the oxygen valve and purge the fuel system in the same manner. When recommended, protective goggles in the shade of 5 or darker with hampered lensing shield the eye with the light with wear protective clothing and the required protective apparel, section 202. The following instruction covered the torch adjustment procedure for the accelerating oxygen cutting into your gas supply with instructing you for the fuel gas. 5. Hold the torch in one hand with the sparking lighter with the other. Be sure that the spark lighter is away from the tip of the obstructing gas flow. Note, alternate fuel gas tend to float when lit. One of the safest means for the lighting the alternate fuel gas is placed in the cutting and heating of the brazing in the 45-degree angle against the workpiece. To open the torch fuel gas approximately 1/4 turn. Ignite the fuel gas. Open the fuel gas approximately 3/4 turns. Add oxygen while the tip remains at a 45-degree against the workpiece. The lifting of the torch, adjust the neutral flame. Never open the light fuel gases oxygen at the same time. Open the torch fuel valve approximately 1/8 of a turn. Ignite the gas. So lift the torch and adjust for the neutral flame. Never open and light fuel gas, and oxygen at the same time. Caution: point the flame away for people with equipment with the flammable materials. 7. Caution: open the fuel valve with the flame stop smoking. Figure 11. Figure 11: adjusting the flame. Figure 8. Open torch oxygen with a valve of bright neutral flame established in figure 12. Show the pure acetylene flame. Inner cone blue, no acetylene feather. Near colorless brush is to the orange. That's a neutral flame. Inner cone acetylene feather. White, light orange, carbonizing flame. Long white inner cone, bluish to orange, nearly colorless, oxidizing flame, and acetylene welding flames. Alright, fuel gases such as propane, propanol, and MP natural gas and other well-produced flames, intensely blue color. Set the neutral flame even for these fuel gases. Adjust the fuel set with the fuel. Further reduce inner cone, smooth the radius cone tip of deep color blue with the natural setting of one of the setting of the reach. Increase the oxygen, decrease the fuel while making the inner cone become a lighter shade of blue, and the flame will become oxidizing. Warning: we experience sustained backfire, a shrill hissing on the sound of the flame that is burning inside of the nozzle. Then immediately turn off the oxygen valve with the torch handle. Turn off the fuel valve. Allow the torch and nozzle to cool before attempting the reeve. The backfire reoccurs. Take the appropriate apparatus, the qualified repair technician before using the equipment again. Section 6: Welding procedures. Or Section 6, welding procedures. Oxy-fuel welding two metals joined with the metal and confused in the joining surface. This is accompanied with directing oxy-fuel flame over the metal with the molten fuel and formed with any foreign material with a molten puddle, trimmed with the metal composition weakening. A filler rod is introduced with the puddle to help the metals fuse together. 601, preparing the metals to be prepared to be welded. Clean the metal joint for the weld with a scale, the rust, dirt, paint with grease, or any other foreign material. So, some of the thicker metals may require additional preparation. Base metal 1/8 of an inch to lesser does not require beveling. Place the metal welded non-flammable work table to determine where the tacking will be required. Additional preparation: butt joint, single V joint, double V joint. Feather edge, 1/8 of an inch more, 60 degrees, 1/16 of 1/8 of an inch, shoulder edge, 1/4 inch or more, 60-degree angle, root angle, 33 to 332, 1/8 of an inch, double V joint. Also, the figure 13, preparing the metal, tacking two pieces together before welding, and edge end pulls apart while welding. 602, preventing the metals from warping. Begin tacking the end of the two pieces of the metal together before welding. Longer the piece of the may be needed for the tack every few inches along the joint. Longer the piece of the may also require an additional penetration gap. The Victor recommends 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. 603, forehand backhand welding technique. The two techniques are employed with the oxygen fuel welding, forehand and backhand. These forehand techniques are recommended with welding material with a 1/8 of an inch thickness because of the better control in the small welded pool. Backhand welding is generally more suitable for the material thicker than 1/8 of an inch. Increased speed with the better fusion for the root weld is normally achieved with the backhand welding. Forehand welding, backhand welding. If the forehand from forehand to the right, backhand to the left. If the forehand technique with the welding rod proceeds to the tip of the direction of the weld, the flame is pointed with the same direction of the weld. The direction of the door downward at the angle of the preheat of the edge of the joint with the welding knob of the welding rod may be manipulated. The backhand welding torch tip with the perceived of the rod direction over the weld. The flame of the point pointed backward to the molten pool, complete with the weld. The entire welding is placed with the flame between the nozzle and the weld. 604, starting and finishing the weld. The forehand butt weld with the filler rod is one of the most common joints made with the basic procedure. The butt weld can be applied with any other type of the joint. Tack at the view of the metal with predetermined intervals. Hold the torch nozzle at the angle of approximately 45 degrees of the joint. And the move of the torch nozzle over the starting edge of the joint, then rotate the flame nearly with the metal with a circular motion. You with the metal base metal you run into the small puddle. Dip the end of the filler rod in and out of the molten pool. This melts the rod and adds to the puddle. Continue with the dripping of the molten in the filler rod of the puddle with the move of the torch back and forth across the joint. 6. Advance the torch nozzle approximately 1/16 of an inch of the filler rod as added to the puddle until the end of the joint is achieved. 7. Since the angle of the nozzle flame treating the metal is ahead of the weld, 1/2 of an inch of the weld is critical to increase the additional filler rod to ensure the full smooth weld. The figure 16 of the visual characters of the good and bad weld joint. This shows the welding rod, the butting joint, the base metal, the puddle, the bead, and the welding nozzle, the convex bead, and a good penetration. The torch angle, 30 to 45 degree angle. Average per oval, 1/16 of an inch, about 1/4 inch, about 5/16 of an inch starting. Direction of the weld, flame rotation, figure 15 starting and finishing the weld. Also, the next diagram you show the correct welding contour, undercutting, excessive reinforcement, underfill, extensive width, burn through, and lack of penetration. Oxy-fuel bracing, welding. Bracing process that characterized by the heating of the base metal with a temperature of 840 degrees Fahrenheit, remaining with below the metal's melting point. Generally speaking, most of the metals can be joined with a simple bracing operation along if the correct filler rod and the flux is used. Note: always ensure that using the proper filler rod and the flux at the job of the hand with the contact with the local Victor supplied with the chart of the various filler rods, the fluxes that are available. The fluxes required to prepare the metals for joining, like arc welding, bracing. We use the metal to join two pieces of the metal with the metal joining, adding the process of the melting point lower than the work piece. Bracing use the metal with a higher melting point with 840 degrees Fahrenheit. Bracing does not melt the metal of work being worked on. The bracing does not normally create the distortion weakness of the metal work with adhesive that may occur with the welding application. Brazing produces a strong joint with often used to join the metal other than the steel and such brass, preparing the metals to braze. Such brazing operation, depending on the closeness of the joint tolerance and the clearance of between 1/10 1/100th to 1/1000 to 1/10 of inch. Performing all brazing process with the well ventilator. Caution: when performing all brazing process with the well ventilator, text fumes may be operated with the brazing process. For the material safety data sheet for the brazing rod and flux to help with ensure the proper safety measures are placed in before welding. Setting up the welding application, clean away with the point paint of the rust grease of the dirt prior with the beginning with the brazing operation. After cleaning the parts, assemble the screw with the joints of the brazing. Refer to the welding nozzle data with the chart section 9 to help the section from the proper welding nozzle side with the regulator pressure setting. Follow all safety rules, operating procedure for the setting up the welding, heating up. Follow all safety operating procedure for the setting up the cylinder regulators, brazing sheet and steel. Follow the brazing procedure described in the brazing strip with the sheet steel. Therefore, the techniques can be utilized with all the brazing applications. 1. Heat the tip of the brazing rod to dip it into the flux. Some of the flux will adhere to the heated rod. So note that some of the rods may always have a flux coating. 2. Preheat the base metal with a dull red color. If the base metal is heated with a higher temperature than that, then this may develop surface oxides. Such flux rod to the heated metal that allows the same flux to melt with the react with the base metal with the melted flux. React with the chemically clean for the base metal with metal small amount with the flux rod. Also, as you braid, the rod flows freely with the tins adhere to the heated base metal with the reach for the correct temperature. 5. Maintain the temperature continually, moving the flame over the metal, but continue with the dip of the rod into the flux. After sufficient rod to melt and bottle with the build in the bead. Continue in the tip of the build with the bead until the desired section is covered. Upon completion of all the welding and the brazing operation, shut off the torch with the oxygen valve. The shut off the torch valve, to be careful not to shut off the fuel valve first, for this may create the pop type sound. When the pop happens, to throw the carbon bassoon back of the torch and any type of the partially clogged with the gas passage for the flashback arrestor. Close both cylinder valves, open the torch handle oxygen valve to release the pressure for the system, but then close the torch oxygen valve. Turn the adjusting screw for the oxygen regulator counterclockwise to release all the spring pressure. Open the torch handle fuel valve to release the pressure for the system. Close the open torch valve, torch fuel valve. Turn the adjusting screw for the fuel gas regulator counterclockwise to release all the spring pressure. Check the inlet gauge after a few minutes. Ensure the cylinder valves are turned off and completely and that there is no pressure remaining in the system. Alright, Section 7, setting up for the equipment for cutting. The oxy-fuel cutting process consists of the preheating of the sharp point for the metal to be cut with the bright cherry red kindling temperature. Once the desired kindling temperature is achieved, the stream of the cutting oxygen is introduced. This ignites and burns the metal, cutting away the slag, oxidizing residue. Oxy-fuel cutting can be applied by plain carbon steel with low alloy steel, some other ferrous metals. Non-ferrous metals, stainless steels, and cast irons are not usually cut with the oxy-fuel equipment. Caution: use it only with the Victor, a cut scale with a fire-powered torch and with the cutting of attachment, the cutting of the tip together to ensure the leak free with the connection balanced equipment. 701. Setting up the cutting applications. Inspect the cone aim with the coupling nut, the torch head with the oil, grease, and damaged parts. Also inspect the cone with the missing the damaged O-rings. Warning: if the finding oil, grease, damage do not use the oil apparatus if it has been cleaned, repaired with the qualified repair technician. The two O-rings for the cone and for the plate for the good condition. The absence of either of the O-rings allow for the pre-mixing with oxygen, but the fuel gases can leave with a sustained backfire within the torch hand with the cutting attachment. 2. Inspect the cutting tip of the cutting attachment head with the tapered seating of the surface of it be in good condition to discover the damage of the cutting tip. If you find the dents and burned, seize, resurface with the torch heat with the use of the cutting attachment with the poor seating surface of the backfire sustained with the backfire may occur. Warning: if tapered tube for the cutting of the tip of the damage, but do not use the poor seating surface may cover the backfire with the same backfire. With inspect for the preheating of the cutting oxygen hole on the tip of the slide cutting can stick with on or into these holes. Then if the holes are clogged, instruct to clean them with the proper size tip cleaner. Or insert the tip of the cutting attachment head with the tighten the tip of the nut securely within the wrench of the 15 to 25 foot-pounds of torque. Figure 17 shows the tightening of the tip nut. Connecting the cutting attachment with the torch handle with the tightening of the coupling and up the hand type with the nut, you for the wrench damage or the O-rings that may occur with the creating this faulty seal. Refer to the tip flow data chart for the cutting of the tip of the regulator pressure travel the speed of the section 9. 7. Follow cylinder regulator safety operating procedures. 8. Open the oxygen valve with the torch handle completely. 9. Open the oxygen control valve cutting attachment with adjusting the oxygen regulator desired delivery pressure. This will purge the oxygen system. Once again, opening the oxygen valve with the torch handle completely. Open the pre-oxygen control valve with the cutting the attachment. Adjust the oxygen regulator so the desired delivery pressure. The purge will then this will purge the oxygen hose. Close the pre-oxygen control valve. Open the fuel valve with the torch handle. Adjust the fuel regulator delivery range. This will purge the fuel hose. Close the fuel control valve with the open on the torch handle. Momentarily depress the cutting oxygen lever to purge the cutting oxygen passage and cutting attachment. Warning. If the torch handle hose is already connected with the regulator, the system must still be purged after each shutdown. Open the oxygen 1/2 turn. Allow the gas to flow 10 seconds for tips for tips up to C 3 and 5 seconds for sizes 3 and 4 and larger for each 25 feet of hose. And the system will close the oxygen valve and purge the fuel system in the same manner. No, always wear protective clothing and proper goggles to shield your eyes from infrared light. See Protective Apparel, Section 202. 14. Open the fuel valve on the torch handle approximately 1/8 of a turn. Ignite the gas with a spark lighter. Make sure that the spark lighter is away from the tip, not obstructing the gas flow. Alternate fuel gas attending with the float with the light. One of the safest means with the light with the alternate fuel gas to plate for the cutting. Tip of the cutting heating brace at 45 degrees above against the workpiece. Open the torch of the valve with approximately 1/4 of the turn. And ignite the fuel gas to open the fuel gas approximately 3/4 of the turn action with the tip of the remains at 45-degree angle against the workpiece. To lift the torch, adjust the neutral flame. Never open and light the fuel gas. Never open and light the fuel and gas oxygen at the same time. Continue to increase the fuel supply with the torch handle until the flame stops smoking. Slowly open the preheating oxygen control valve with the cutting and eye attachment until the preheat flame is established in the smooth inner coil. 17. Depressing the cutting oxygen level that if necessary readjust the preheat flame slightly to neutral flame. Increase the preheating oxygen cutting attachment with the preheating flames that again are neutral. If the preheating flames are not the same side and the cutting oxygen is not straight, turn off the torch and let it cool and clean the tip. Warning, never open or light the fuel gas and oxygen at the same time. Warning, if you experience a sustained backfire, the flame disappeared with a shrill hissing sound. They heard cause of the flame burning inside of the cutting assisting attachment. Immediately turn off the preheating oxygen cutting control valve with the oxygen attachment. Turn off the torch handle fuel valve. Allow the cutting attachment to cool before attempting to relight. If the backfire reoccurs, have the apparatus checked with a qualified repair technician before you use the apparatus again. No, inspect the area with the slag and then sparks will fall with a series of fire and explosions covered the careless torch operation. Take possible precautions with the higher with the fire extinguisher available to remove the protective flammable substances, including oxygen fuel for hoses, before starting the work. Refer to Figure 23 with the graphic sequence recommended procedure for the efficient flame cutting. 18. Holding the cutting attachment torch handle comfortable in both hands. Stabilize with the torch position the cutting tip with the preheat the flame approximately 1/4 inch from the base metal. 19. Direct the preheating flame with the spot with the cut to begin with before the cutting action. It can start with the preheat the starting point with the metal to be right cherry red kindling temperature. When the red spot appears, depress the cutting oxygen lever and slowly and fully. 20. When the cut starts, move the torch in the direction we wish. The cart Figure 19. Note, when moving too slowly, allow for the cutting to fuse together. Moving too fast will not preheat the metal, and cut will be lost. Continue with full depression, cutting the oxygen lever until the cutting oxygen stream is passed. Base metal for a good drop cut. Figure 23. Figure 19 shows the cutting. Alright, starting a cut by piercing. Preheating a small spot in the base metal with a bright cherry red candle temperature. See Figure 20. Figure 20, start piercing. Tilt one of the torch slightly on the side, preventing the sparks of the slag from blowing towards you. The metal pierced. Rotate the torch. Move the torch steadily in the direction you wish to cut. Piercing. 21. Piercing. Note, if the metal does not pierce all the way through, it could mean that there's not enough oxygen flow. Other possible could be the wrong with the type of the tip side of the hose side of the cutting oxygen pressure being used. Figure 22 shows the cutting by piercing. Okay, upon completion of the cutting operation, shut off the oxygen preheat valve. Then close the torch valve, fuel valve. Be careful not to shut off the fuel valve first. This may create a pop type sound. When unpop happens, throw the carbon suit back with the torch, but it may be in time partially clogged with the gas passages of the flashback arrestor. Be careful not to shut off the fuel valve first. Both cylinder control valves are gas source supply. Open the oxygen valve to provide for the cutting oxygen and level the relief the high pressure for the system. Close the oxygen preheat. Torch the handle oxygen control valve. Turn the adjusting screw oxygen regulator counterclockwise to release the spring pressure. Open the torch fuel control valve. Release the pressure from the system. Close the fuel valve. Turn the adjusting screw with the fuel gas regulator counterclockwise to release all the spring pressure. Check the inlet gauge for a few minutes to ensure the cylinder valve is turned off with completely no pressure remains in the system. 8. Remove the slag left on the cutting edge with the chipping hammer on the brush. Never remove the slag from the cutting edge with the torch head cutting tip. A recommended procedure for the efficient flame cutting steel plate. 1. Start the preheat point at the tip of the angle of the edge of the plate. Then rotate the tip upright position. Pressing cutting lever slowly, rotate the tip backward slightly. Number 4. Now rotate upper position now rotate to an upper position without moving the tip forward. 5. Rotate to a more rotate the tip more point slightly in the direction of the cut. 6. Advance as fast as good cutting action will permit. 7. Do not jerk or maintain slightly leading angle toward the direction of the cut. 8. Slow down and let cut stream burning core and edge for the bottom. 9. Cutting steadily forward motion until the tip is clear to end. Figure 23 recommended procedure for efficient flame cutting. Section 8, troubleshooting. And I think we're going to cut the tape there.